Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Talking Trisomy podcast series brought to you by Soft. Today is a really special conversation because we're focusing on trisomy 9 and the growing community of families, clinicians, and advocates working to make sure no family has to walk this road alone. We're bringing together 8 families who are currently raising trisomy 9 children, along with 2 leading experts in the field, Dr. Mindy Lee, a pediatric medical geneticist, and Kelsey Hogan, a pediatric genetic counselor, both of who have dedicated years of studying trisomy 9, the condition, and ways that they can support this community. For many families, one of the hardest parts of trisomy 9 diagnosis has simply been finding reliable information. For years, families were handed outdated medical papers, given very little guidance, or even told that they're going to have to go research on their own. Many parents had to piece together information scattered throughout the internet or Facebook or phone calls and they had to all do this all while navigating probably one of the more emotional moments of their lives, receiving a diagnosis about their child. And so that's why I wanted to bring this up. This is the new and expectant parent book specifically for trisomy 9. And within this book, Soft worked with to make sure that we had the most medical up-to-date research. And we wanted to make sure that it was medically sound, and the likes of Dr. Lee and Kelsey both helped contribute to it along with other medical professionals. And so we wanted to make sure that that information was spot on for them. The second thing is the 8 families that are represented in today's podcast all contributed with pictures or quotes or stories so that that too could be in the book. We wanted to make sure that any new parent that was reading this book was able to see children and families behind the diagnosis. So we're grateful for their contribution. So this book really brings together both sides, trusted medical advice and guidance, and lived family experiences all in one place. So I'm excited that today's conversation, we get to dig a little deeper into all things trisomy 9, both mosaic and partial, and to hear that these families and different experiences throughout the country, throughout the United States, and what the latest and greatest is for them. We get to hear what they hope that this book can do for the next set of families that have to receive and walk this path. They really hope that they can support future families. And so we at Soft, that is our number one goal, is to support families. And so we're so grateful for Dr. Lee, for Kelsey, for these 8 families, and for the many other trisomy 9 families that have contributed to making this community and this organization a place that other trisomy 9 families can receive support, guidance, and really just love. So again, we hope that you enjoy this podcast. And now let's get started. Hello. We got a wonderful Talking Trisomy podcast today. This is our second big group one. I'm so excited. I've met, I think, just about everybody at a Soft conference that's joining with us, but we're joined by a number of moms with trisomy 9 children. We got Dr. Lee and we got Kelsey, some of the leading experts with trisomy 9. So anyway, before I just keep rambling about how excited I am for this group to get together, I want to hear from each of you. Let's there's no great way to do this, but let's all say like hello, and then I'll say somebody's name because I'll just kind of call on, well, we'll do our best. Anyway, everyone watching, listening, this is all things talking trisomy, all things about trisomy 9. What a wonderful day. Hopefully you get some good information out of this. Gabby, you're the first one on my list. We'll go with Gabby, then Ashley, then Allison. Say just a quick hello.
Hi, I'm Gabby. My son Philip is trisomy 9 mosaic. He's 18 years old, and I cannot tell you how excited I am about this. Obviously, I've been advocating for all his life, and I'm just happy to be part of it.
Ashley.
Ashley Sabal or Ashley Valentine?
Which one?
Oh, there's
There's
two.
two of
Let's do
us.
both Ashleys back to backs. Sabal, you go first, then Valentine.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ashley Sabal. My daughter has partial trisomy 9q, so we are the rare bunch. She is 3 years old, so I'm newer to this group, but I'm excited to join today.
I'm Ashley Valentine. My daughter is Carrie. She is 14. She's trisomy 9 mosaic. We have done soft for 10 years now. So we're really excited about all this advocating and including the nines.
Yep. If
I'll go
someone else
next.
has yeah, go.
My name's Alyssa. I am the mother to Gabby, who has trisomy 9P.
I'm Patty Walsh. My daughter Alana is 16 and she has trisomy 9M, and we have worked with SAW for many, many years. And we also swore when we found out and got all these terribly outdated information that we would do whatever we could to help anybody else who found themselves in our position. And we are unusual in that we knew ahead of time before Alana was born.
Do you want to say hi?
Sure. Hi, I am Anna. I have 3 kids. 2 of my older ones are just your average children. And then Patrick, who is almost 6, he has trisomy 9P. And last year was our first year at the SOFT conference, and it was the best experience in the world. And we cannot wait to see what's to come in the future.
Dr. Lee, why don't you and Kelsey say hi, and then anyone else we've missed?
Hi, I'm Dr. Lee. I'm a pediatric medical geneticist who started studying trisomy 9 mosaic syndrome way back when I was a fellow, and this has now grown into a lifelong career research project and grown into really trying to help the whole chromosome 9 community. So thank you for having me. We're very excited to be here.
Thank you for joining.
And I am Kelsey. I am a pediatric genetic counselor. So I often work in tandem with a clinical geneticist like Dr. Lee. And in fact, I've been working with her for 7 years now. So I have seen her interest in mosaic trisomy 9 and chromosome 9 conditions grow. And I am also so happy to be here with you all and support this community.
Awesome. And I think Renee, I think you're the only one left, at least right now. You want to say hello?
Allison, too.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm Renee Case, and my daughter is Ivy. She's 8 years old, and she has trisomy 9 mosaic. Something that makes us a little bit different from everybody else is that Ivy is adopted, and so we knew about her diagnosis before we adopted her. I'm also very big into advocacy for just the medically complex community here in Indiana, and I'm just really excited to be a part of this.
Allison, thank you, Renee.
I'm Allison. I have Asmund, my son. He is almost 3. He has trisomy 9 mosaic, and I'm excited to be, part of changing stuff in the trisomy 9 community and part of making things better for the people who come after. And just also super thankful for the work of the parents who came before and the work you guys did.
Awesome. Thank you for everybody's introduction. In the long form, it will be really fun because everybody gets to hear how old your kids are. We have a wide range of children of both mosaic and partials, and just so grateful for this. Now, the cool thing is just about every one of you on this panel, I'm going to have a chance to interview you privately. I've talked to, I think, 3 of you so far, and the rest you're on my calendar. So we'll have individual time to talk about your individual stories, because we know that, like Allison, you just said, it's families kind of helping families. And that's what makes SOFT great, because that's what it is. It's SOFT, family-led. But in recent years, we've really wanted to help improve the information. And I think it was Allison, you and I were talking, and I talked to Patty, and I've talked to a few others, where you're just like, when you received diagnosis, there wasn't a lot for you. You kind of just searched multiple websites, and like you had to be quite good at internet sleuthing. Let's talk quickly just kind of about the history of those early days when you got diagnoses. I know each of you could spend an hour each talking about that. So maybe just 1 or 2 of you, and maybe even Dr. Lee or Kelsey, you can kind of say what life was like 10 years ago when you were in your fellowship or your early days of learning about trisomy 9 in those studies. So let's kind of go back in time real quick, and I'll stop rambling, but anyone we'll kind of popcorn it. Just feel free to jump in.
So, well, I think since Philip is probably one of the oldest, at that time, internet, it was just developing. you didn't find groups online. And all I could find at diagnosis, it was literally the definition of trisomy 9 at NORD. And that was all the information I could get. I couldn't find anybody else leaving. We were looking at pictures. The pictures online were just fetuses, black and white pictures, most of them. So when Facebook started, that's when I think a lot of the advocating starting for trisomy 9. And we were so eager to get together to get the information out because we were all feeling lost because you didn't have that information out there. And I remember asking even the geneticist, can you give me something? And all she could do is just the definition. And I'm like, no, thank you. I need to know how to care for him and what I need to do for him. And they were nice in a way that they were explaining, he is who he is, and we're just going to treat him for who he is, not for the diagnosis. But at the same time, I was lost. I had no support. It was nothing. So it took me about a year and a half until I found soft. And then I realized that the number doesn't really matter. So that's how I formed more relationships and started advocating even more for 9. But literally, I've learned that they're each very incredible kids and they're all individuals and everyone is different. But at the same time, as long as we do our part in advocating, I think we're moving mountains right now.
Gabby, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
So when you said that NORD had information, is it pretty comparable to what there is now? Because I think last I checked, NORD, like that was the first one that I found too. And it was a very little paragraph
that's exactly
about
what
it.
that was. And
Yeah.
then Wikipedia. But then Wikipedia didn't really give me any more than NORD. So I was trying to do it more through NORD and even trying to get in touch with someone to explain more. And then later on, we found a group from Australia and they had emails. So we were communicating through emails and that's how we were trying to form the group.
So can I do you mind if I chime in? Because
Yeah.
so Alana is 16 and we found out when I was about 20 weeks pregnant. And we did an internet search and Maggie Blair came up, who some of you know she came up.
Yeah.
And then our genetic doctor who we initially met with, she had actually seen a previous case of trisomy 9M and she had all these dire predictions and it was kind of horrible. But then when Alana was born and did well, the neonatologist gave us information that was copyright 1983. So I work in legal publishing. So I'm like, wait a minute, why is this so old? And then we eventually found Unique and we found Facebook and Soft and all of that. But it was just like, I was questioning the doctor, like, what, you're giving me information that is so old. And then Unique's pamphlet has been a godsend. We've also tried to put Alana in a lot of studies. And as Dr. Lee knows, I called up CHOP when I heard about her study and was like, hey, my child who was treated here is not in this study, because we didn't want people to feel as confused as we did because it was so confusing, so isolating. And they tell you all these things and you're like, well, my child's not doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say Carrie's 14. So when we got her diagnosis, the geneticist said, don't Google it. You're not going to find anything. And I Googled it and I found nothing. And when I called him back, I said, I have to know something. And he sent me to Unique. And that's all we had for the first year was just information off Unique's website. Then he told me, he was like, you're not really going to know how it affects her until she's older. Like, it's just something you're just going to have to learn. Every case is different. Every child is different. And then it was about a year later that I got hooked up with like Gabby and found out and met her in Chicago that year. And then we found Soft after that. So
Families getting connected. Yeah, we have the Unique. You guys, a lot of you have shared with me the Unique. We want to share as many other links on our website. So hopefully it creates that SEO and search engine optimization so people search those keywords. So keep sending me things that we want to put on the website to link to other awesome things out there. Dr. Lee or Kelsey, kind of maybe give us a perspective of what caught your attention into this realm. And then let's talk about what's out there for people now. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, this became a project for me because when I did my fellowship at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And so at that time, I had a general interest in what we would consider neurodevelopmental disorders or disorders that basically it can affect how the brain functions and grows, and then also, of course, affect development. And there's thousands and thousands of genetic instructions and disorders that fall in this area. But when I was a fellow in particular, it was one of our attending geneticists there who said, we have this rare condition. We have actually seen it here a fair number of times, but, no one's really been able to pull it together into an actual study. And so that's actually how that project became mine. And, this was over 10 years ago. So at the time, this is like predating like, Chat GPT and all of these things, and so I manually combed every single thing that was ever published about basically chromosome 9, trisomy 9, trisomy 9 mosaicism. And there was actually a decent amount of information, but it was individual case reports and not helpful, like in terms of helping a family in front of you. It's literally like a description of what happened to a baby after they were born. And that was kind of it. And you had like no follow up and no one could put it together. So that is essentially what my very first project was to try to get all that information together, tally it up, really see like, well, what are the parts of the body and the areas that you really actually need to kind of focus on? And then that's sort of the journey of like, okay, well, how many patients, can we get a group of patients together? Can we start seeing more so we can just develop some expertise? And a fun story for with a Philly connection with Patty and Alana is that, the day, like 2 days before I think I moved back to Chicago, I saw Alana. She was like my very last patient to see her. And that was really great to be able to kind of close the loop actually many years later, last year when we finally got to see each other again at SOAP, because it just that much time passed in between. But it was families like, the Walshes and then everyone on this call and others basically who, as the community started growing online, allowed us to finally connect more. And then I also then got the opportunity to speak at SOAP a couple years ago. That was through one of the physicians who I know. And that's how everybody now at this point basically got linked up. But at that time it was hard because some information was there, it just wasn't very helpful, and it was very gloomy and like there was just nothing that really I think spoke to the full picture of it, and that happens in medical literature a fair amount. The most severe things are just being reported. There's not necessarily follow up, so you can't really see. You wouldn't be seeing the mild cases necessarily because maybe no one's writing about them. And then also, you have to come to medical attention. You have to get specialized testing to get these diagnoses, basically. So if that's not happening, then you can't have a diagnosis, can't find a support group, and all of these things. Things are much, much better now, thankfully, because, this group was, supported through SOFT and to be able to kind of build a central community. And it also help, clinicians like myself and Kelsey too, just have like a centralized place to connect with families. And now I've had the wonderful chance to meet, a lot of the families through the conference, but also I've had, individual families reach out to me. This eventually then led us to be able to build a specialized clinic for patients who have chromosome 9 changes. And so that's the one that we run right now, children. So that was a little bit about my experience from the clinical side. And I'm part of the reason why we still kind of try to work on this is so we can continue getting the information out there. And actually, we're currently actively working on another study, trying to just pull additional information out there to make sure we don't end up with like a 20-year-old study again. That's just kind of out there and the only thing. So we're working on it.
Well, and we went to see one of our doctors and we were given a study and I'm like, Alana's in this. I've seen this before. And the other thing that I want to commend Dr. Lee for doing is when Alana was born, I was referred by a CHOP employee to the CHOP Trisomy Clinic, and the CHOP Trisomy Clinic refused to take her because she had trisomy 9 and we're not taking her, which I was kind of annoyed at because why call yourself the trisomy clinic if you're not going to take a rare trisomy? Like, that's really frustrating when you're trying to find and the people are referring you and you're like, oh, even the doctors don't really know what they're doing sometimes or where to send you. And that can be very frustrating.
Yeah. And I will say, these conditions are rare. Like, well, we're used to dealing with kind of rare of the rare in genetics, but even for genetics teams, it is actually possible for like a genetics trainee, like a genetics resident or genetic counseling student, maybe to go through their career and not actually even see this diagnosis. because it just kind of depends on where you train, what you're seeing. So I've actually heard also many stories of families saying, yes, their geneticist or their genetics team had not necessarily seen this before. So, it's just sort of what you see and where you are. And, now our team at least has hopefully like a centralized place for some families to find, folks who are more familiar with it. And I know Kelsey could give a little perspective from like the genetic counseling side. She's definitely the genetic counselor who's seen this diagnosis the most at this point as well.
Yeah, like I doctor at the Mayo Clinic. And so obviously, a lot of people travel to the Mayo Clinic and our geneticist had never seen it.
Yeah. And I think even some people who might have more recently been diagnosed still encounter that story from their providers is that I don't know much about this. I'm going to give you a link to somewhere online, and that's really leaves it up to the families to kind of connect. So we're trying to make it a place, our clinic, a place where you can have some of that expertise, because obviously you can't transplant Dr. Lee's brain into your local geneticist and be like, have all this expertise. But from the genetic counseling side of it, it is definitely SOFT is a great resource for many the trisomies, but really good to have a hub, because oftentimes before the internet or in the infancies of the internet, you're just Googling. And nowadays you almost have nonsense that you're coming across and you have to sift through things that are maybe not actually accurate. Rather than not having anything on Google, you're sifting through like, what do I need to pay attention to? And so places like Soft or our website will give you really good places and accurate places for information, because that's also key, is to get accurate and updated information as well.
Yeah, and so I actually was at Lurie's. I had Patrick in suburbs of Chicago, and then I actually said, you have to transfer me to Lurie's and I will not accept anything less. And when we got our diagnosis at Lurie's, they were kind of shocked and they didn't really have a lot of information, but whoever did work with us, they did their research and they gave us whatever they could, and they did actually send us to the Facebook group, which has been just the best thing in the world, connected me to everybody. But yeah, even at Lurie's 6 years ago, I think the amount of information that Lurie Chicago has is completely a million times better, even within this past 6 years. So what we are doing with Soft, with getting information out there, with all these guides, it's just, I think it's bigger than we even realize that it is. So
Yeah. Kelsey, when was our inaugural clinic? Was it May of 2024? It's new.
Yes, I think
It
we're
was
just
definitely
coming up on
post.
our 2-year
Yes.
anniversary.
Yeah. So yeah. So we're so glad this is like really helpful to kind of hear everyone's sort of perspectives and how this happens. And yes, the clinic did not exist, and actually I was not back at Lurie, I think, at the time of your child's diagnosis. So I'm glad at least we're there.
Yes.
And we're very glad. But that was part of the reason why we wanted to build a place. So yeah.
Yeah, it's been quite remarkable. What I hope that we're kind of hearing is like, this is cutting edge. Like we're creating a path. I think there's other diagnoses. I think, things like trisomy 21, there's a path to making sure that families in the future have resources. And when I talk to Patty, but this is all of you guys, and you guys are saying this, but Patty specifically said, I just want somebody in the future to not have to walk the same path I had. I want this to be an easier path for them. And that's what I'm hearing. And like we're talking about here in the very minute that you're listening to this podcast, hopefully by the time it gets published, and if you're listening to this in a few months afterwards, it's probably better than when we recorded today here in February. So what a wonderful thing that these
We try to
that you
tell
parents.
people.
Yeah, go ahead, Patty.
Sorry, Nick.
Yeah, no, you're all right.
I try to tell people who are newly diagnosed who come into whatever, if they like, I tell all my doctors, you can send people to me. I don't care. I'll sign whatever waivers you want. And I try to tell them, you just get a doctor that will listen to you, because half the battle, because there's so little information, as long as you can get a doctor who will listen to you and will like be receptive. We give out the unique pamphlet. Now we have the soft one we can give out. There's all these things we give out, but you have to get a doctor who will listen to you, because I'm very fortunate. I live in an area with 3 children's hospitals and a Shriners Hospital. Not everybody has the options and the things that we do. And even with all that, I think we counted once of the 10 specialists Alana had, only one had ever seen, no, two had ever seen another trisomy 9 patient. And we're in an area where there's a ton of people come here from elsewhere. So like you have to get a doctor who's going to listen to you. And when I come back from the soft medical clinics and say to call Alana's pediatrician and say, hey, we need this. He's like, okay, why? Okay, we'll send you, call this person. Like we've been very fortunate to have found a doctor who's very receptive to what we have to say. And when we learn things through everybody on this group, or if people ask me, I'm always willing to share our experience.
Awesome. Let's talk about the creation of this book we're talking about. And I'll put up on a screenshot since there's so many of us, the book and the links to the book. It's the Trisomy 9 book. It's for new and expectant parents. At Soft, we have Trisomy 18 and 13, but we're really excited for the Trisomy 9 one because as you can hear from these stories, that even up to 2 years ago, and even right now, it's still hard to find a comprehensive understanding of Trisomy 9.
I think it's great because it's another when a family searches, trisomy 9, hopefully on the internet, it's going to pop right up. So it's like another resource like Unique that you have. And I love like the quotes in it and the photos. And I know like Patty, when Patty had the original Unique, and Ashley, I think she got the old Unique document too. I know that was like, I think scary for them. And so to have a resource and like see different families and like the positive like quotes that people put in there, I think that just shows that, like every journey is different, but it's going to be okay.
Pushy. So I also put Alana's story in the Tracking Rare Incident Syndrome project, which is Dr. Debbie Bruns' project. Because when we first found out about it and they had all these like sad stories, and I saw her at the first soft conference we went to when Alana was 3 in Norfolk, Virginia. I think Gabby was there, and it was before we met you, Ashley. But I was like, you need some positive stories. And she's like, okay, so here's your 20-page questionnaire, fill this out. So I was very adamant that she have some positive stories because some of the stuff out there, trust me, so negative. And yes, it's a challenge in some ways, but kids are living longer and kids are doing more. And you just need a little bit of that. Oh, well, this kid can do this. Maybe my kid will be able to do this. Because it's hard when the doctors are all doom and gloom and you're just like, but my kid's doing okay. She's not on a feeding tube and she's not throwing up. What do you want me to do? Or she's not in the NICU for weeks.
Yeah, and that was our hope. And like just when we joined the Facebook group and saw all these other kids and big kids, it was like, oh my gosh, my child isn't going to, there's really no limit. And like, there's just so much out there and all the children are different, but just really seeing the happiness in the families and hearing stories, and really just like hearing the support that all the parents were giving each other and just the positive vibes, that was truly amazing. And that was really what gave us a lot of hope. But yeah, seeing firsthand these children living day by day doing these amazing things, it really helped us to kind of change our outlook and be more on the positive side. So that was just priceless.
Yeah, I like
Before
how
we
Alyssa
adopted
said.
Ivy,
Oh, hold on.
go ahead.
I'm not sure who was speaking, actually. I think no, you
think it
guys
was Renee.
speak first.
Okay, I'll go.
Go ahead, Renee.
So before we adopted Ivy, when we first found out about her, we were going through an agency where they just kind of give you these kiddos that they know need a family, and you only have 2 days to make a decision. And I know that for me personally, because we already had a special needs child before we found out about Ivy, I had first reached out to our geneticist and was just like, okay, here's what we know. Is this something that we can handle? And she said, yes, you can. And then I immediately went to Facebook and I found the Trisomy 9 Mosaic Families group and joined as soon as I could. And that just kind of solidified that, like, oh, golly, I haven't thought about this for a long time. It just kind of solidified that it's like, even though we know we knew ahead of time what complications Ivy already had because she was 3 months old when we got her. But it's like, it gave us hope that we would be able to handle, even though she had a whole lot of, a whole bunch of things happen after we got her. But it's just like, okay, she's got, a feeding tube and dislocated hips, and we know she's got some neurological stuff. But it's like, you know what? All these other families can do it. And so we can too. And so that group has just been so incredibly vital. I know that personally, I've reached out to other families that had daughters around the same age as Ivy and was just like, what are you guys dealing with right now? What are some struggles? What are, and just being able to connect with those families because there wasn't anything online, 8 years ago, really, that, gave me any sort of hope. That just having the community has, I think, rode us through the last 8 years. And I know that a lot of us can attest to that it's just, talking to other families, and this is your experience and your experience. And, it might be hard, but, we have the support of each other. And that has been amazing, at least for me personally, for the last 8 years.
And I
The
love the
reason why I'm
joy that
happy,
you can.
sorry,
Oh,
the
I love the
reason
joy
why
that you
I'm
can see.
happy that we were able to get the book out is because, yes, I have one of the groups with the trisomy 9 on Facebook, and I really wish that doctors would have the information that us parents have, because we kind of seen different cases. Yes, Alana's doing better. You ask me on some of the issues that I see that they are common in our kids, and I can tell you for sure, yes, this is a trisomy 9 trait. You can see how they are progressing. Yes, this is going to work, not work. Because us parents, we build that relationship and we have so much more information than many doctors have. So having the book out, I think it would be amazing to have all these doctors have access to it.
I think as a parent too, when you look at the book and you see like you can connect, and like what I said, Joy, earlier, like that picture of Carson on the back where he's laying on the beach and just his smile, like, okay, that smile I feel like says everything. Like, they're still happy kids, and they just deal with, different challenges.
Yeah, I like
And that's reassuring as a parent.
I like what you said, Alyssa, about all the pictures of the kids in the book. But I really like all the kids together. Because it is, you do get to see them like individually, and that's amazing. But having them all together shows there's this group, and that we can all be supportive of one another, and that we were able to come together for pictures like that. And I just think that they say a picture show is 1,000 words, and I think the one of all the kids together just speaks so many volumes of everything. And we have recently a new trisomy 9 mom in my city. Her daughter is still actually in the ICU, and this book literally came out when she first reached out to me. So the first thing I did was I bought the book for her, so she had it to know, like, hey, you're not alone. There's people out there. All these kids are doing amazing. And I know Gabby has been working with Soft for years. Pat, we've all been working with Soft for a long time. And it's just really amazing that Soft was able to put out this book for all these parents going through all this.
And especially for those who can't afford to go to the conference, because like we're fortunate enough that we can go. And I know a lot of people in this room have been able to go, but there are people who may not be able to make the journey for various reasons. And having other material is great for them. And even there was a trisomy, and this was Gabby, because Gabby's one of the first parents I met. When they had the trisomy 9, a bunch of Chicago parents had a conference. Alana was like 3. And I think they were expecting like 15 families, and something like 30 came, and people came from Europe. People came from Canada. That was the first time I met Ashley. It was, as soon as I heard about it, I said to my husband, I'm like, we are going to find a way to go. I don't care how much it costs. Whatever. But it was just the first time we were in the room with all these other trisomy 9 kids. And it was unbelievable. And they did a great job with that. And then, try getting connected with Soft and trying, because they have the established conference, because putting on a conference is a lot of work. But I will say the book is another tool for those who might not, or might live somewhere where they might not be able to see anybody. The first parents you meet is like such a major big deal. And the first time you meet another trisomy 9 kid is a really big deal for most of us. I know
And
the first
in general.
Yeah.
And then, like, from the medical's perspective too, it truly is like the first resource that's also more geared toward for the families. What Kelsey and I work on and things like that, that goes into the medical literature. It's still, pretty technical, because again, it's just more written for like a medical style journal. So, but this resource is at least something that someone can, just like physically hold and read and look through. And also now it's updated. So, this is a good resource that can now be like updated with as the years go by and things like that. So we won't end up, with someone, 20 years from now, like looking at this being like, why is this from, 2026 or 2025? So,
And I love to see it when it's like, when kids are in like adulthood and like those like having more adults, like older ages.
yeah, yeah. Cause there's definitely like a much broader like spectrum in terms of individuals than what was reported, like for sure. We definitely do have some children who are more on the severe end, but we also definitely have, we definitely have some that were definitely more on the mild end and, kind of everything in between. But it's good regardless that, there's a community regardless of whatever, the status of the child and the family are. So
I was just going to comment about the pictures as well, because it's one thing to read an article and just like have all these words, but the pictures really like you can really connect with the families that are in there. And when this book came out, I actually shared it with like all Liana's like therapists and the doctors, and they were really like appreciative and they wanted to share it like with everyone else. Like, oh, is it okay if I share it with like the whole community that I'm part of? And it's definitely like spreading. So this is good. Yes, 100%. I actually took Asmund to his therapy appointment this morning, and I had mentioned the book before, and his therapist asked me this morning to send her the link to the book so that she could get it, and she wanted to learn more about Asmund and his condition so that she could help him better. And I'm excited that we have something that we can just like be like, here's this, learn about him. And I'm one of the moms who puts a lot of stuff on social media, and I've had people find me from other countries, and they'll send me a message and ask me, what do you know about this? Because my child has this diagnosis, or some people who've gotten prenatal diagnoses, and they'll ask me about it, and then I'll send them, links to whatever I can send them. But now it's kind of like all in one spot, so I can say, here's this. And it's a lot more helpful.
I want to just add that I think, Patty, your story is unique in that, like, not a lot of people historically have gotten a prenatal diagnosis like you did. But I think this is going to be a very useful tool as the testing that's offered to the average pregnant person gets more comprehensive and more advanced. More people will be diagnosed during pregnancy. And so having something that is happy and has all of this information but is easy to understand and also has all these great stories is just going to be the best way to share rather than just providing like those historic old papers that all we used to have, to someone who is pregnant. Mm-hmm.
Is willing to talk to people about the whole prenatal thing and what goes on, because it's kind of a loaded thing for a lot of people, and a lot of people have a hard time. But I always say, if you have people can DM me, you can always give my name and whatever, because it is really hard, and there's a lot of things that they want you to make decisions really quickly. At least that was our experience. But I always will say, send people to me. And if somebody comments, I just got diagnosed, I'll always, in the Facebook groups, always be like, hey, you can DM me. I've been there, done that. Because it is, for the average 20 something having a baby, it's sort of uncommon. I was 37 with some other, so I was high risk for multiple reasons. So I was getting monitored much more closely, which is kind of how that it all came together. And it's the brief story. So I do think there's a big difference between knowing ahead of time and then finding out in the delivery room, or your kid is yanked to the NICU and you don't know. Like, we were told, prepare for a multi-month NICU stay, and Alana went for 12 hours, and they're like, well, she only came because she had the diagnosis. She could have gone, and she went home at 3 days old. Like, people are like, really? And that just gives you a sense of the variety, I think. And my husband said that when they were taking, did anybody when they were else not taking her have to, a NICU stay? What? Did anybody else not have a NICU stay? We didn't have a NICU stay.
Yeah, we didn't know
Did everybody
anything
else?
about Philip, and he was just IUGR, and they had seen some issues. He was in a regular hospital, never in a children's hospital. I was released 3 days, and he stayed 5 days, and then he was just released. And
Yeah.
actually, we got his diagnosis at 11 months old.
Oh, geez.
Hey, some of you have to leave here in a moment. When you leave, can you make sure that like the recording uploads? It should tell you that it was upload complete. Or like if you're on a computer, if you just kind of leave it on, then when we wrap up, it will be there. If you can try to do that for me, because we need to finalize, get all that piece up there. So I think Patty, you got to go, and a
Yeah,
few
I
others.
have to go get. I have to go get the princess.
We go. Well, let's do this. Let's kind of
99%.
talk about the future. Somebody kind of mentioned what I think is the next book is the care book for living children. We have new and expectant books, and in particular the one we're talking about today. About 20 years ago, a Trisomy 18 care book was written by a gal, Ann Barnes, out in South Carolina. And so maybe there's that will be the next phase. But Mindy or Kelsey, if you quickly maybe want to talk about future from your perspective, and then maybe a mom or two can talk about theirs, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah. So, in terms of, trying to figure out the future, I think some of the biggest questions right now are just what happens when a lot of these individuals get to adulthood. We already know actually there are individuals who've made it to adulthood. They're just, there's not that many that we know about and connected with and such yet. So, but the population definitely we have are just growing. And we know, this is a diagnosis where people can survive, longer into this period. So, we're focused on trying to still continue learning as much as we can from our patients and the families as the individuals get older, trying to understand like what are the real things that need to be screened for and things like that. We are actually actively working on the next iteration of this type of study with recommendations that I'm hoping will be, done and complete later by this year. So that's something that we foresee we would hopefully just continue updating. But the other area, of course, that I think, folks always think about when it comes to kind of future and what can you do is, of course, like research, right? Can you realistically potentially have like treatments or something, in this area, without getting to the main details about how tricky that can be specifically for these types of genetic changes in the diagnosis. I will say, we are in a medical era now and like a technological era where there are disorders where we once thought could never be treated. That was like impossible. And there are, things ongoing right now for other conditions that are unrelated to these that, where it's something, they're actually making a difference there. So, but it starts with, what is the condition? How much do you know about it? What are the things you're really looking for? And then you have to go from there. So our hope down the road is to be able to, delve a little bit more into this area of research, even if it's things like, can you find a marker, for example, that really predicts like who is a little bit more at risk for XYZ, who can you make a prediction? Are you more at risk to be more severe in this end versus mild? If so, why? Can you, and go from there? And so those would be, the ideal things down the road, but these things, of course, all take time.
I don't have anything else to add. I think Dr. Lee summarized it perfectly of, why we're invested in this and how, our clinic gathers the information for the research to be published. So that's our goals.
Yes.
Can
And
I
a big
have
thank
a
you to all the
special,
families who, yeah.
I
Can
do
I
have a
have a
question. Do
special,
you guys have
special
any
request,
hard?
Dr. Lee? We got to
Sure.
do growth charts for trisomy 9, please.
I did actually look into this further. No. I have gotten this question. I can do a little brief update on this. So so for those who are listening who may or may not know, so with this condition, we know there are children who are at risk for just being small. That's why actually, when someone is pregnant, for example, it's not uncommon to hear a history of like intrauterine growth restriction or IUGR to children to be born small. Not everybody is though, and there is some variation of some children who plot actually even on normal curves. The overall consensus is a lot of individuals can be small. So, there's a lot of families who've, shown their interest in trying to develop growth charts specific to this condition, which I completely think makes sense. The only thing that had always been the limiting factor was the number of data. Because in order to make a growth chart, you can't just have even like 10 or 20 kids. You need data points from like more than 100. But I did actually look into this. There's an electronic health record company also that has now started developing some like unique rare disease growth charts. And I did specify and ask about it for this condition. We don't have enough data points to do it, but we will. You need at least like 400 plus data points, and I think we're sitting at about like 100 something if we get the data that we have together. So it's still, I know it's there. It's just statistically not possible right now, which is based on the volume we had, but it's there, and it's on my list as soon as we can get to that point. Yeah.
Knowing this group, that
I have
all
a
you're saying
question.
is challenge
To be part
accepted.
of your like studies and research for like what you're doing, do you have to be seen in clinic, or like can people
Yeah.
send info?
Yeah, no, this is a great question. So right now it is easiest in terms of, getting connected in the clinic, in the sense of like part of the study is looking at the whole patient and, physical exam, physically seeing, getting the whole history. That's part of it. The reason also, and then sometimes, as you know, some folks I've been able to connect with some of you guys also with the SOAF conference. The limitations there, I would say, of course, are just like the time, even as you guys know at the conference with all the scheduling. And it's actually not even like, I think, possible, even if we like just sat down with like all the families. That's one. Second, probably is, it's not a conference necessarily that Kelsey and I will be able to go to every single year all the time. That's the other thing. But truly, I think the limiting factor here is just the time that we have for the study. So, our primary role at Children's is clinical, meaning like most of my time is I have a very, very small amount of time bought out for research. And so it's that, and we don't have a formal study coordinator. So Kelsey is the clinic coordinator for the actual clinic, but we don't, formal bigger studies have like an actual person who could be like a regular contact who could, kind of go through all of the formal paperwork and all of that. And that's, I think, where the limiting factor is for us right now. Yeah. And so if it's something down the road, if we're able to get more formal support, for that kind of research and actually get like a full-time coordinator, that is when we can open it up. But I will say we can't at this, we don't really just have the capacity to do that. Yeah. That's an excellent
Doesn't mean you
question.
can't reach out, even if you
Correct.
can't travel,
Yes.
doesn't mean you can't
Correct.
reach out. It just we can't give like medical advice just like over the phone or something like that. But you can still stay in contact and, be on our list of like, okay, if we're starting to do more like phone or like video, just like research consents, then we, have your name and can contact you. But don't feel like that you can't reach out to
Yes.
us because of that
Yeah.
you're not in Illinois.
This is such a wonderful group. I'm grateful for everybody getting together. You can see that this group knows each other quite well, and the Facebook group is out there. I'll make sure we get that listed with the description, the link to the books. One of my obligations over the next couple months is to make it easier to find the Trisomy 9 book on our website, but we'll put the link directly to it. So we just hope that more families can have more information, that they can make decisions that are best for their families. So thank you, this wonderful Trisomy 9 group. I think just about everybody contributed to the book, either as a quote or as a peer review, or Mindy, Dr. Lee, and Kelsey actually wrote parts of it. And so this is a medically sound book. And then the quotes and pictures and all the fun things, you worked with Chris Holiday to make sure all that got in there. So thank you everyone who contributed. That's why you were asked to join this group. We have many other Trisomy 9 families that are amazing, but that's why we started with this selection of individuals. Again, SOFT is here to support families and help change the narrative. So thank you so much for being part of both of those missions. What a wonderful day.
And I just wanted to say a huge
Yeah, go
thank you
ahead.
also to the families. Then I just want to say a huge thank you to, folks listening and everyone who's on this call as well. You guys are the ones who help motivate us to keep us going. And, I'm very glad to, hopefully, we'll be able to continue moving forward with projects and things that we've discussed. So thank you all for, you guys are a huge part of it. We couldn't do it without everyone, being willing to participate and share your stories. So
this big group, it's always not as easy to close up, but we're going to have individual stories getting released over the next coming months. We have Trisomy Awareness Month in March. It's always every March, so we'll have even more stories for that. Thank you, everyone that's listening. Thank you, those that made time out of their busy schedules to be guests. Thank you, everyone. This is Talking Trisomy, brought to you by Soft. And everyone have a great day. And
I just want to say bye to my
Bye.